Hello and welcome back to the Comic Lounge. I am here, of course, to show some more, this time, definitely recent pickups. Definitely within the past week or so. And what I have, again, from the same comic shop. And so what I have here is about a stack of 10 comics. So uh, before I get into that, I'll see you after this. Okay, so again, just made another trip to. Though it was actually probably maybe several trips or something, but still, it was definitely some trips back to this same shop here in Susanville. And it's not really much of a comic shop, but they do specialize in selling comics, and obviously they have a very large selection of back issues. They don't specialize in new releases, but they definitely have a very large selection of back issues. And every once in a while, I just get surprised by what with from digging. I'm just very surprised at some of the stuff I'll end up finding. Stuff that just gets like hidden within these boxes. So, without further ado, let's get into the first one. And obviously, there's not a whole lot of DC. There's only a couple DC titles, and this one's actually Captain Atom. And actually, there's two of Captain Atoms. But the first one I'm going to show, well, this is the more obvious one. It is Captain Atom, issue number 12. The very first appearance of Major Force. And if you're not familiar with Major Force, well, he, of course, does something very infamous to Kyle Rayner, the, I don't know, maybe third, fourth, fifth, whatever, Green Lantern during the 90s, came out during the Emerald Twilight, and first appeared in number 48, and then made his maybe his first full appearance as a Green Lantern in, I think, number 50 or so. Still, Major Force does something, and it is infamous within Green Lantern comics, but this is his first appearance in Captain Atom, issue number 12. And a thing with Captain Atom, issue number 12, and the first appearance of Major Force is, if you were to find this, it always gets put in like cheapy bins, most like the dollar bins or whatnot. Even if you're not looking for like cheapy bins, if you were to find at least a box that has a divider with of course, the title Captain Atom, that'd be like for all Captain Atom comics. If you find it, it's not going to be priced at very high. It is a very cheap comic. I got this for like $2, and fairly good condition, not super high grade, but it's still a very good copy. It's a direct edition. I know they actually had a newsstand edition. However, there was definitely some warped defects on that copy, so I just went with the standard direct edition. And again, even if for a newsstand, it wouldn't be worth too much anyways. So there we go, number 12. And of course, we have to have the companion issue to that one. It is Captain Atom Annual number 1. This would be the second appearance for Major Force. However, this is also classified, I would classify it as the first cover appearance for Major Force. But this one's not nearly as high grade, I guess, as number 12. But it's still a fairly good-looking copy, even with like some spine ticks and some minor defects here and there, and definitely some somewhat dirt and grain if you'll ever come through. It ain't gonna come through, not really. But there's a little bit of a dirt here and there. It's just obviously worn a bit. Still, this was $3, and I just feel like if I'm gonna get number 12, I might as well get the second part to that issue. So there you go. Captain Atom Annual number 1. First and second and first cover appearance from Major Force. Alright, so now we have some Marvel here. So let's get into some Marvel, and we're going to start off with some Punishers. Now, when I'm looking for like Punishers, most of the time I'm also looking for a lot of, like, say, the final run for, like, let's say, the Solo series and War Journal and Warzone, because those are some of the really tough ones, like the ones that were kind of low printed, and I found at least a few in the past. But However, let's say if you're going to try and find anything, let's say early Solo, I found a few early Solo issues from at least the late 80s. But for War Journal, which was the second ongoing series, the earliest I've ever found were some of these. And so here we have this Punisher War Journal number 12. And what really just is so cool to me is this was during when Jim Lee was drawing the covers. And so this is him fighting the Bushwhacker who first appeared in Daredevil 248. But here he is. This is actually a tie-in to the Acts of Vengeance event that they were doing. But there's Punisher War Journal number 12. This one was like, what, $5 still. Not super high grade, but it's a very cool copy nonetheless. It's very cool to have. I just, obviously it's very awesome to find some Jim Lee Punisher. Because normally if you find any Jim Lee, it's going to be like X-Men related stuff or possibly Alpha Flight. But not really a whole lot of Punisher from where I'm at. But here, it's always a treat when finding some Jim Lee Punisher. And then, of course, let's go at number 13, which I think is one of the most best Jim Lee Punisher covers. It is number 13. This is the second and final battle between Punisher and the Bushwhacker. Jim Lee doesn't do the interior art in this issue, but it still is a very great cover nonetheless from Jim Lee, and it's obviously the last Punisher War Journal from the 1980s. So there we go. Not super high grade. Actually, I got this one for $2 because this wasn't priced, but they gave me it for $2. And obviously, you can't beat a $2 Punisher War Journal, especially for that awesome cover. Again, not super high grade. There's definitely some defects here and there, a couple small spine ticks, but still, it's a very cool copy, and it's a very cool comic to have. Next up, here we have Punisher War Journal number 16. This one's not Jim Lee. This will be the first Punisher with this classic 90s Marvel Comics logo, but this is actually drawn by Mark Teixeira, who also does the interior on this one. Not super high grade for this copy. There's definitely some small defects here and there, but it still is a cool comic. Like this was also like $5, but still, it's a Mark Teixeira cover, and I'd say maybe one of the first Mark Teixeira work on a Punisher comic. So I have a Punisher Warzone like number 37, so that's like towards the end of that run. But this is still cool, Mark Teixeira. This was actually like a fill-in issue. This was a break between Jim Lee and Carl Potts. So this is Mark Teixeira and Mike Baron, and Mike Baron was the guy that was writing, at least at the time, most of the early solo run for Punisher, and had a long period of time on the Punisher stuff, but this was basically that team working on Punisher here. But not sure about Mark Teixeira, though. That mostly, I think, was towards another period. Still, very cool to have, and obviously, I just like Mark Teixeira and Jim Lee, and obviously, just still to find some early Punisher War Journal is always awesome. There's that. Now, speaking of some cool Punishers, here we have, this one was there, but this is Punisher, the movie special. This was not super good, not super high grade. This is very much a mid-tier grade, but this was $5. But obviously, this is the Punisher movie special. This would have been an adaptation for the movie with Dolph Lundgren, the very first Punisher movie to ever be made. So obviously, this was a very cool find. And I'm just really very fascinated to check this one out, because I know there's some stuff that was put in this book that was left out of the movie. At least there were like deleted scenes. I know there are certain cuts of the film where they would put the scenes back for the longest time. This was how you were able to kind of get those scenes, was in this comic book adaptation of the movie. So very awesome find to have. All right, so we have a somewhat of a random West Coast Avengers issue, but this is a kind of a very, very minor key. But it's West Coast Avengers number 29. This actually would be considered the only solo Moon Knight issue to be published under the West Coast Avengers run. But this is actually considered the death of Taurus, who first appeared in Avengers number 72. But this is his very first appearance, his death. Death. The death of the character. Still, Obviously, it's some Moon Knight. I've been trying to, here and there, I'm starting to kind of dip my toes in more Moon Knight. But this is obviously a very cool one. This is not super high grade. There's definitely a bit of a slight crease or something on the back of the comic around this portion, but it's not color breaking. So it still looks very good, and obviously I couldn't pass up, even though for $5, I couldn't pass it up for some Moon Knight, even if it may not be the greatest issue, but I'm just kind of very curious in his period with the West Coast Avengers. Still very cool nonetheless, Al Milgrom art. So West Coast Avengers number 29. Solo Moon Knight issue for that run. Now there is something really, really cool. So what we have here is, this is a comic book that's actually starting to really kind of go up there. This is actually starting to spike in price. But what we have here is Silverhawks number 1. This, of course, was a one of Marvel's was an animated cartoon, Saturday morning cartoon sort of TV show tie-in comic books. Of course, printed under the Star Comics imprint that they had. The same thing they did for like the Thundercats. So just like that, this comic book is starting to kind of go up there in price here and there on eBay. Like what a copy actually sold for $30 on, even it's again being a direct edition. However, I didn't pay $30 or nor even $20 for this comic. I actually paid about $3 because for the longest time I would see this in a random comics bin at their shop, but at least for all stuff that isn't like Marvel and the major comic book publishers, mostly some random independent stuff, maybe like Image, stuff that just isn't worth a whole lot. But they snuck in Silverhawks number 1 in this bin, and they were selling it for $3. And so for the condition it's in, it's a very, very good looking copy, close to a near mint, really good. Again, I could not beat that for $3. You can't beat that for $3. So obviously for a comic book that's spiking up in price, and especially for the value, consider the first appearance of Silverhawks in comic books. This was an awesome find, so I had to grab that. So there we go. Now this one's, speaking of some independents, we're going to end these off with this. This one really caught my eye, but and it's mostly who was the artist. But I've never really dipped my toes in this character because I wasn't familiar at all with this character. But we have this issue number 9 for Whisper, released through or published through the First Comics company. What caught my eye was that this was drawn by Norm Breyfogle. If you're not familiar with Norm Breyfogle, well, he's the one who drew some of the really cool Batman covers from the early 90s, especially the 457, the classic new Robin issue where Tim Drake officially becomes Robin, introducing that classic costume for Robin. But this is pre-Batman for Norm Breyfogle. What really was awesome was that when I found out after getting this, because this only cost about $3. This wasn't priced, but this was a $3 comic anyway, so they gave me it for $3. Not super high grade, but still looks very good. Still, when I got back, I found out that this was actually also written and created. The character itself was created by Stephen Grant, and that's another selling point for me, because Stephen Grant's the one who wrote the classic Punisher, the first limited series, 1 through 5 from 1986 with those awesome Mike Zeck covers. This is Stephen Grant, and also wrote some plenty of Deathstroke, the Terminator comics, and would still write here and there some Punisher comics. So he's done some awesome stuff, and so Whisper being his creation, on this being a team up between him and Norm Breyfogle, I could not. So I'm really very fascinated with that. I might end up finding some more Whisper. Finally, we're going to end it off with a very wrestling-based comic, and a very infamous one. Here we have this Warrior, issue number 2. They had this for $3. And if you're not familiar, this was the late Ultimate Warriors comic book. This was basically what coaxed him to try and get back into the WWF/E these days, Vince McMahon. So this was his way to basically to try and use that as a way to promote his brand new comic book, his own series. And it's very infamous. If you're not familiar with this, boy, you're going to have to be at least familiar with this, because this is some... Yeah, but still, it's wrestling based. It's Ultimate Warrior, passed away and so on. And of course, I've seen that promo before. I've seen it before he passed away. I've had an Ultimate Warrior figure over there somewhere. Was so fascinated with the character, with him as a personality, and it was freaking crazy. Still, for $3, actually finding one of his comics was really something. So obviously, this was a easy pickup. So there you have it. There's all the comic books that I picked up this week. And so if you have any sort of thoughts, whether they are positive or negative, again, if you're just familiar with any of these, you can leave them all down in the comments section below. But if you're very much enjoying my enthusiasm, my personality on all the stuff that I show, again, hit that subscribe button. You'll never miss out on any brand new content. So with that, continue collecting and reading comic books. Take care, everybody.